In the unending silent theatre of the cosmos, our world is but a fleeting mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. For millennia we have stared into that silent blackness, that profound and star-dusted void, and we dreamed of reaching out, of touching the heavens, of building silver ships to sail the solar winds. But that dream has always come at a staggering price. For every ascent, for every glorious climb into the dark, we have paid a tribute of fire and thunder, discarding our magnificent machines like spent cartridges. Each journey to the frontier has been a one-way trip for the colossal engines of creation that carry us there, masterpieces of engineering sacrificed to the ocean depths. This was the brutal equation of spaceflight, the accepted cost of defying gravity. Until now, a revolution has been quietly unfolding, a paradigm shift so fundamental it promises to rewrite our future among the stars. The key is not in building bigger, more powerful engines. It is in teaching these titans of launch day how to return, how to descend from the heavens as gracefully as they ascend. It is the dream of reusability, a dream once confined to a single audacious company in America, but which is now finally going global. And from the heart of the Gobi Desert, a new challenger arises, ready to attempt one of the most daring feats in rocketry, a maneuver that could reshape the balance of power in space. This is the story of a crimson bird of fire, a machine named Zhuque-3, and its audacious attempt to be caught from the sky. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we must journey back to a time when rockets were instruments of war, not exploration. The German V2, the terrifying progenitor of all modern liquid-fueled rockets, was a weapon of destruction designed for a single terrible flight. Its descendants, the mighty Saturn V rockets of the Apollo era, were instruments of humanity's greatest adventure. They were technological cathedrals, the tallest, most powerful machines ever built. Yet after just a few minutes of thunderous life, their giant first stages, having done their duty, would peel away and surrender to the unforgiving pull of the Earth. They would plummet through the atmosphere, tearing themselves apart before a final violent impact with the cold, indifferent waters of the Atlantic. Imagine for a moment the modern age of travel. Consider a state-of-the-art airliner, a marvel of composite materials and advanced avionics capable of connecting continents in mere hours. Now imagine that after a single flight from London to New York, this several $100 million aircraft was simply pushed off the runway at JFK, ditched into the sea, never to be used again. Imagine the airline having to construct an entirely new jet for the return journey, and for every subsequent flight after that. Air travel would be an impossible luxury reserved for nations, not individuals. This precise, absurdly wasteful model is how humanity has conducted its affairs in space for over 60 years. The first great attempt to break this cycle was a thing of beauty and complexity, a winged marvel called the Space Shuttle. It was a noble, deeply ambitious vision. This hybrid vehicle, part rocket, part spacecraft, part glider, was designed to be the workhorse of a new generation. Its majestic orbiter could return from orbit and land on a runway like a plane. Its two solid rocket boosters, after their fiery separation, would parachute into the ocean to be recovered, refurbished, and painstakingly prepared for another launch. But the dream was compromised. The shuttle was only ever partially reusable, and the process of recovery and refurbishment proved to be astonishingly expensive and labor-intensive. The complexity that made it so versatile also made it fragile, a reality brought home in the most tragic of ways. The promise of cheap, routine access to space remained unfulfilled. The old paradigm, the single-use rocket, stubbornly endured. It was simple, it was reliable, and it was the only way we knew. The heavens remained an exclusive, prohibitively expensive destination. Then, from the sun-drenched coast of California, a new philosophy began to take shape, driven by a visionary who refused to accept the old equation. Elon Musk and his fledgling company SpaceX did not just want to make rockets cheaper, they wanted to fundamentally break the economic model of spaceflight. The central thesis was deceptively simple. A rocket's first stage accounts for the vast majority of its cost. If you could recover and reuse that stage, you could slash the price of a launch. The aerospace establishment, steeped in decades of tradition, was deeply skeptical. The challenge was immense. It was not merely a matter of attaching a parachute. A rocket booster is a tall, slender, top-heavy structure. Slowing it from hypersonic speeds at the edge of space was one problem. Guiding it through the atmosphere and then landing it upright on a tiny patch of ground or a floating platform at sea was a feat of guidance, navigation, and control that seemed to border on science fiction. Early test vehicles like the Grasshopper were strange, ungainly contraptions, little more than a single engine, a fuel tank, and 4 spindly legs. They looked awkward, but they were the crucial first steps in teaching a rocket how to fly backwards. The early attempts were a symphony of failure. Explosions on the launch pad, guidance systems going haywire, boosters tipping over in a final fiery surrender. The company teetered on the brink of financial collapse. But with each rapid, unscheduled disassembly, as they were euphemistically called, invaluable data was collected. The algorithms grew smarter, the hardware became more robust. They learned from the fire and the wreckage, and slowly, impossibly, they began to succeed. On the 21st of December 2015, after successfully delivering its payload of Orbcomm satellites to orbit, the first stage of a Falcon 9 rocket did something unprecedented. It did not fall back to the sea. Instead, it reoriented itself, fired its engines 3 separate times in a ballet of precisely calculated burns, and began its descent. Back at Cape Canaveral, an eerie silence fell over mission control. On the screens, a single dot of light grew steadily brighter. Then a sound unlike any heard before during a launch, a sonic boom. Not the roar of ascent, but the sharp crack of return. The booster was coming home. It appeared out of the night sky, a pillar of fire descending under its own power. In the final seconds, its landing legs deployed. It gently, almost surreally settled onto the concrete of landing zone 1. The engine cut off. Silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Then an eruption of cheers. It was a watershed moment in human history. The passenger jet had for the first time landed itself after its transatlantic flight. The paradigm had been shattered. But landing was only the beginning of the revolution. The ultimate goal is not just reusability, but rapid times reusability. To achieve this, SpaceX looked to an even more audacious idea. They began by trying to catch the rocket's fairings, the clamshell-like nose cone that protects the satellite, using giant nets on fast-moving ships named Mystery and Mischief. It proved to be incredibly difficult, a frustrating game of cat and mouse on the high seas. Eventually, they abandoned it in favor of scooping the fairings from the water, but the core concept, catching a returning piece of space hardware, had been planted, and it would re-emerge in its most dramatic form yet. For their next-generation Starship vehicle, a colossal craft designed for missions to Mars, SpaceX envisioned something straight from a golden age sci-fi novel. No landing legs at all. The massive booster, known as Super Heavy, would be caught in mid-air by the launch tower itself. A pair of giant robotic arms, nicknamed Mechazilla, would track the descending booster close in and grab it, lifting it directly back onto the launch mount. This method eliminates the weight and complexity of landing legs, freeing up that mass for more payload. It promises a turnaround time measured in hours, not weeks. It is the absolute pinnacle of reusable rocketry. And it is this exact incredibly ambitious method that is now being pursued halfway around the world. For decades, China's journey into space has been a tale of steady, methodical, state-led achievement. The Long March family of rockets became a symbol of national pride. These were powerful, reliable vehicles launching taikonauts into orbit, building the Tiangong space station, and sending robotic explorers to the Moon and Mars. But they were without exception expendable. Each launch was a magnificent but finite spectacle. The old equations still held sway. Around 2014, however, a profound change began. The Chinese government, recognizing the disruptive potential of the new space economy, opened the floodgates. Private capital and entrepreneurial spirit were now permitted to enter the strictly controlled domain of space launch. A constellation of new companies blinked into existence. Among the most ambitious of these was a firm called LandSpace. Their first attempt, the solid-fueled Zhuque-1, failed to reach orbit, but they did not falter. Instead, they pivoted to a far more advanced design, a liquid-fueled rocket called Zhuque-2. Critically, they chose methane as their fuel. Methane, when combined with liquid oxygen, a propellant mix known as methalox, is now seen by many as the future of rocketry. It burns cleaner than traditional kerosene, leaving less soot on the engines. This makes engine refurbishment and reuse significantly easier. It is also a fuel that could theoretically be produced on Mars from the Martian atmosphere and subsurface water ice. It is the chosen fuel of SpaceX's Starship and Blue Origin's New Glenn. LandSpace was betting on the future. The bet paid off. In July of 2023, the Zhuque-3 rocket successfully reached orbit, becoming the world's first methalox-fueled launch vehicle to achieve this milestone, beating its powerful American competitors to the punch. It was a stunning statement of intent. LandSpace had proven its technical prowess, and now they are preparing for their masterstroke, the Zhuque-3. The name Zhuque refers to the vermilion bird, one of the 4 symbols of the Chinese constellations. It is a crimson entity representing the fire element and the south. The rocket that bears its name is a monument of stainless steel gleaming under the desert sun. Its design philosophy immediately invites comparison to SpaceX's Starship. Like Starship, it uses stainless steel for its main structure, a material choice that is heavier than carbon composites but vastly cheaper and more resilient to the extreme temperatures of re-entry. It is a 2-stage heavy-lift vehicle powered by a new generation of sophisticated Tianque methalox engines. It is designed from the ground up, not just for reuse, but for a radical new form of recovery. Zhuque-3 will not land on 4 legs. It will not be fished from the sea. It is designed to be caught. Let us try to visualize the sheer audacity of this maneuver. It is a challenge that operates at the very limits of physics and control theory. Picture a skyscraper 50 stories tall falling from the sky. As it plummets, it must reignite its engines with split-second precision, not just to slow down, but to actively steer itself towards a specific point on the ground. Waiting at that point is not a simple concrete pad, but a colossal steel tower, hundreds of feet high. Attached to this tower are 2 immense actuated arms like robotic chopsticks. These arms must track the falling skyscraper in real time, adjusting their position to compensate for winds and engine performance. In the final terrifying moments of descent, the building is still moving at speed. The engines are throttling down, providing just enough thrust to make the final approach survivable. The arms swing into position, their clamps open. The timing must be perfect, the margin for error effectively 0. The arms must close and grip the structure with immense force, absorbing all the kinetic energy of the falling mass without crushing it. This is the mechanical ballet LandSpace intends to perform with the first stage of their Zhuque-3 rocket. It is a technological gamble of the highest order. A failure could be catastrophic, destroying not just the booster, but the entire launch tower, a setback that could take years to recover from. So why attempt such a perilous feat? The reasons are the same ones that drive their American counterpart. By eliminating landing legs, the booster becomes lighter. A lighter booster means it can carry more payload to orbit for the same amount of fuel, or it can reserve more fuel for more complex return maneuvers, increasing the chances of a successful recovery. Furthermore, by catching the booster directly on the launch mount, the entire process of transporting, inspecting, and preparing it for the next flight is dramatically streamlined. The goal is an operational tempo that resembles an airline, not a space agency. A rocket that lands is refueled, has a new payload stacked on top, and is ready to launch again in a matter of days or even hours. This is the holy grail of commercial spaceflight, the key that unlocks a future where access to orbit is cheap, abundant, and routine. And it signifies that the revolution started by one company has now become a global phenomenon. The race for reusability is officially on. Across the planet, engineers are tackling this challenge in wonderfully diverse ways. In New Zealand, the American company Rocket Lab has been pursuing a different path. Their much smaller Electron rocket is not large enough to carry the fuel required for a propulsive landing. Instead, they deploy a parachute and attempt to snag the falling booster in mid-air using a hook dangled from a helicopter. They have successfully performed this daring aerial capture, a testament to the skill of their pilots and engineers, proving there is more than one way to bring a rocket home. Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin was in fact the first to achieve a vertical landing of a rocket returning from space with their suborbital New Shepard vehicle, a pioneer in the field of precision guidance. Their forthcoming orbital rocket New Glenn is a behemoth designed for propulsive landings on a moving sea barge, following the trail blazed by Falcon 9. In Europe, a continent that has long been a major space power with its reliable Ariane rockets, the pressure to adapt is immense. LandSpace is now developing its own reusable booster technologies, with demonstrator vehicles like Themis exploring the complex physics of retropropulsive flight and landing. The message is clear in the 21st century space race: expendable rockets are becoming a liability. Reusability is no longer a novelty, it is the price of entry. The success or failure of LandSpace's first catch attempt will have consequences that ripple across the entire industry. If they succeed, it will be a seismic event. It would instantly establish China as the second nation on Earth to master fully rapid reusability technology, and the first to do so with a private company leading the charge. The commercial launch market, currently dominated by SpaceX, would face a formidable new competitor capable of offering similarly low prices. This would create intense pressure on established players like America's United Launch Alliance and Europe's Arianespace, accelerating their own development programs or forcing them into new alliances. For China's national space ambitions, the implications are even more profound. A cheap, reliable, and reusable heavy-lift rocket is the foundational technology required for every grand project of the coming century. It is the key to constructing and servicing massive multi-module space stations far larger than anything in orbit today. It is the only economical way to build a permanent lunar outpost like the proposed International Lunar Research Station. It is the transport system for a sustained human presence on Mars. Zhuque-3 is not just a commercial launch vehicle, it is a stepping stone to an interplanetary future. We are witnessing a historical echo, a transition as significant as the one that occurred in the 19th century. For millennia, humanity's reach was defined by the wooden sailing ship. It was a technology that enabled exploration, trade, and empire, but it was beholden to the whims of the wind. Then came the steamship. Powered by coal and fire, it was faster, more reliable, and could travel against the wind and tide. The nations that mastered steam power were the ones that would define the next century. Today, reusable rockets are the steamships of the cosmic ocean. The ability to come and go from Earth's gravity well at will and at low cost is the enabling technology of our time. It will determine which nations lead the development of the orbital economy, the exploitation of lunar resources, and the eventual settlement of other worlds. This new reality raises profound philosophical questions. For half a century, space was the exclusive domain of two superpowers locked in an ideological struggle. Then for a time it seemed to be the domain of one. Now we are entering a truly multipolar era in space, where private corporations wield capabilities once reserved for governments. Will this lead to a new age of cooperation with international partnerships building humanity's future off-world? Or will it ignite a new, more complex competition for resources and strategic high ground? The technology itself is neutral. A reusable rocket can be used to launch a satellite that provides internet to remote villages, or one that guides weapons with pinpoint accuracy. It can carry astronauts to a research base on the moon, or it can deploy military assets in orbit. The choice, as always, rests with us. And so we return to the windswept plains of the Gobi, to a steel tower reaching for the sky, to a team of engineers running through their final simulations. The air is thick with anticipation and the immense pressure of history. On their shoulders rests not just the fate of a single mission, but the validation of a national dream and a new industrial model. The countdown will begin. The Tianke engines will ignite, turning sand into glass, their roar shattering the desert silence. The Crimson Bird will ascend on a column of controlled flame, a testament to human ingenuity pushing its precious cargo towards the velvet blackness of orbit. But for those on the ground, the most critical part of the mission will only begin after the first stage has completed its task. They will watch their creation fall from the heavens, a man-made meteor streaking across the sky. And they will wait holding their breath for the moment when machine and tower must meet in a final breathtaking embrace. Whether the arms of the tower close successfully on their prize, or whether the desert floor is scarred by a new crater, is in some ways secondary. What truly matters is that the attempt is being made. The old boundaries have fallen away. The race has begun in earnest. Humanity is reaching for the stars again. And this time we are no longer content with simply visiting. We are building a permanent ladder to the heavens forged in the fires of a new global ambition. The sky is no longer a destination. It is becoming a highway, and the traffic is about to get very, very busy.